As good as it was for Michigan football, it's been a disappointing year for Michigan basketball. Remember, a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament last year. They had the nation's 3rd-ranked recruiting class. They were preseason number 6 this year, but it has been a rough start. They're just 7-6. Really no resume-building wins. And now I've had the last 2 games postponed due to COVID issues within the program. First of all, what are you hearing on Michigan basketball?
So I talked to Michigan this morning. At this point, they're on the court with just limited numbers, so no full practice yet. I think Friday's game is in doubt against Illinois.
Right.
And that is going to be a real tenuous situation for Michigan for a number of reasons, and for the opponents, Michigan State, Purdue, and Illinois. Unlike a year ago, where Michigan was dominant, 1 seed, team that wins the Big Ten, didn't play both Illinois games, they ended up making up one of them. They had leverage. They were in a position like, yeah, we'll see what we can work out. We were pre-vaccine, we're trying to figure it all out. Michigan, as you just pointed out, desperately needs these games.
Yeah.
Like, this could not come, and I don't want to minimize, COVID issues, but this could not have come at a worse time in their schedule, because these are the 3 games they needed the most, because they do not have quad 1 wins. And 2 of these games, these 2 at home, to get quad 1 home games, which means you got to be in the top 30, it's top 75 if it's road neutral, those are really hard to come by. And they have 2 of them, Michigan State and Purdue, off the schedule. And you look here, where are you going to squeeze it in? Because you got to get these games in some form or fashion. And right off the bat, you see it's the 23rd, 26th, and then it's 29-1. Maybe is there an opening on the 5th, but you got to have a matching date for the opponent, Michigan State or Illinois. If that game gets canceled, or Purdue, and you're probably not going to play Purdue back to back. So the schedule is going to be very difficult. The other difference here is you're dealing with ticket holders. A year ago, they could move games around because there were no fans.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I was told as well this morning from those that work the schedule in the Big Ten. That's another problem. A year ago, you could say, hey, let's match these 2 teams up on this date. Why don't you come back and play this game? Because travel was not as pressing, because the rest of the country wasn't traveling as much. But you just can't move dates when people already have tickets for particular games. So this is going to be a real difficult situation for the conference and for Michigan and its teams when they can come back.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And as you say, they need those games because they need to build their resume. They do not have anything really that they can hang their hat on at all. I mean, San Diego State's their best win, and
right.
You're not going to get into the NCAA.
And that was at home.
Yeah, hanging your hat on a San Diego State game. More broadly, kind of take the schedule and take what's going on with them with COVID out of it. And again, I echo your sentiment. I mean, COVID's a bigger deal. We certainly hope everyone is healthy ultimately, but our job is to talk about the sports and how it impacts that. What are you seeing from their team? Why do you think they're 7-6?
Well, I think that, unfortunately, there are times when the transfers and the freshmen, and we're all guilty of this, 3rd-rated recruiting class, they should have an immediate impact. It doesn't always work like that. And, Caleb Houston, Devontae Jones, came in, huge hype, all expected hype, and they've been inconsistent, which is okay. That's human nature. Freshman transfer. But I think we, and also Michigan especially, was incredibly and has been spoiled by the riches of their transfers. Look, Mike Smith obviously was better than anyone thought coming from Columbia, but he also had, I think, better pieces around as a point guard. Shooting has been inconsistent. A lot of pressure put on Eli Brooks. Not as much help for Hunter Dickinson because Isaiah Livers, I think even though he was hurt at times, you forget his importance. I think to Dickinson last season, because he took a lot of pressure. He could play inside out. He was all over the place. And he doesn't have that. Dickinson doesn't have a Livers this season. So I think all these were maybe a little bit over-projected in the preseason.
Right. I think that is the challenge, that some of these transfers, kind of to your point, have almost been anomalies, where they're just so much better. And then you kind of get into this mode of, well, it's transferring to Michigan, and ergo, because we've seen all these guys kind of get plugged in and succeed right away, that'll happen.
Well, to that point, there's no one that thought, Plummer at Illinois would be, better than any newcomer that Michigan has.
Right.
You know, when you think about, Utah transfer versus third-rated recruiting class and big-time scorer.
Or significantly better than Adam Miller, who was a huge, high major, big-time recruit and then just not great perimeter knockdown shooters. And that's a tough combination when you've kind of taken a slide on both ends of the court. You were talking a little bit about the repercussions of those cancellations for some of these other programs. And again, we don't want to project. We'll see what happens with Illinois. Certainly, they're sitting pretty no matter what happens. What are the implications for Michigan State and Purdue? I mean, to me, they get a week off. They've already, they've built their cases pretty well at this point. It doesn't feel like they need the Michigan game anywhere nearly as much as Michigan needed the game against them. Obviously, Michigan State would love to play them twice, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's a huge rivalry.
Well, I think that you'll get to a point in the pecking order where which games matter the most. I think the Michigan State playing twice will probably be number one. But with Purdue has 2 losses. So they don't want to lose games because they want to try to win the Big Ten. And I do believe with winning the Big Ten, you will get a number 1 seed. So I think Purdue has a lot at stake to make this game up as well because they don't want to fall back, because they're already back in the loss column.
It'd be really interesting to see how all Big news out of State College yesterday. Katie Schumacher-Cawley, former Penn State All-American player who spent the last 4 years as an assistant to the legendary Russ Rose, taking over now as the head coach at her alma mater. She becomes just the 3rd head coach in the 46-year history of Penn State Volleyball. Of course, a program that has won 7 national titles, has never missed the NCAA tourney. Katie Schumacher-Cawley is our big interview today. She joins us from State College. Coach, congratulations, first of all. What does it mean to you as someone with deep ties to this program to now take over and be the head coach?
It's a dream come true to stay here at Penn State and just to be a part of this amazing university and program. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to continue to be here and to just have this team have a great experience.
This is not your first time as a head coach, far from it. You were at UIC, Illinois, Chicago for quite some time, spent a year at Penn as well. How did those experiences of having been in that head coaching spot, you think, help you make this transition?
I was very fortunate the past schools I've been at. I learned a lot from the players, from the administration at both schools, and I think I take away a little something from every school and from every player that I've coached. So whether it's the academic piece or the recruiting part, I'm just so honored to be able to come from the schools that I did in the areas and really use all of that moving forward.
What are the biggest things you learned about yourself as a head coach?
I think it's just the interactions and the people you meet. I mean, you have to be able to communicate well and have great relationships with coaches and players and parents. And, I'm still learning. I'm still learning, too. I know I've been a head coach before, but I'll tell you what, there wasn't a day that went by here in my past schools that I never felt that I was done learning. And I know I have a lot of work to do here, and I'm just really fortunate for the people that have been involved in this process.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you left Penn after just 1 year to take over as an assistant with Coach Rose. How much of that was with an eye on maybe potentially succeeding him at some point?
It's funny. A lot of people have asked that. And, me coming back here was a highlight of part of my life. And, I wanted to work with Coach and I wanted to be back in this community. That was never really a forefront of my mind. I always wanted to be present when I was working at whatever school it was. And so I was just happy to be able to be with him and to be with him in this different role. And continue to learn more about the game and just Penn State. So, I never knew if this was going to come, and I thought, hey, if it did, I'd give it my best shot. And I'm so grateful for Coach and for his wife, Lori, and all of their support going through this process.
He is an incredible guy to learn from, no question. You played for him. You coached with him. What are the biggest lessons that you have taken from him?
Oh, geez. you know, like I said, every day I felt that I was learning something from him, and it wasn't always volleyball. We talked a lot about life, my children, my family. But, you know, it's something that always sticks with me that, you know, he always said, everything matters. And I've always thought that, and, you know, listening to him say that every single day, it sticks with me. I think everything you do, whether, you know, it's how you're talking to people, how you're treating people, and just how you present yourself. And it does really matter what you do. And so, you know, I take that to heart. And, you know, besides that, just all my little conversations with him, and just how special he was to me and to my kids.
I mentioned that you were on a national title team with him, that first one in 1999, the first of 7 national championships. What do you remember most vividly about beating Stanford and winning the national title?
Oh, geez. I mean, we were in Hawaii. So, you know, me, a Southside Chicago girl that never really got out, going to Hawaii and winning a national championship. I'll tell you what, the fans there, I think our families, both my parents were able to come. I think the celebration afterwards with just our teammates and parents and coaches was, I mean, I have some really vivid memories of just being with them and being so happy and happy for Coach that it was his first.
You mentioned you're from the south side of Chicago. You played at Mother McAuley, which is an absolute volleyball powerhouse. You won a couple state championships there, but you were a heck of a basketball player as well, and you led Mother McAuley down state on several different occasions, and I know played briefly for Penn State. Describe your hoops game for us.
Oh, geez. You know, I was lucky to be on so many great teams at McAuley, both volleyball and basketball. I mean, I was fortunate to be on teams that they just worked really hard and had a lot of talent. As far as my game, I don't know. I was good around the hoop and can run a little bit, so.
Do you still play at all?
No, I don't. I mean, I played a little bit in the intramural leagues, you know, when I was here and first season here, but no, I don't anymore. I actually should get back to running like that, but.
You know how high the standard is at Penn State. Obviously, it is the only program, as I said, that has ever made the NCAA tournament every single year. 4 straight years without a Final Four now. Look, they've been in the tournament, they've been really close, but again, the standard is really high, and I'm sure you are going to embrace that. So how do you get from being very, very good to being great again?
Yeah, you know, the expectations have always been like that here, and I think that's what makes me tick and want to be great here. It's, hey, the expectations to recruit the top players, to bring them here, to train them, you know, and just to be great citizens of this community. This program can and will be there again, and I know Coach has laid the foundation and more than that, and so I'm hoping just to, you know, put a little fresh face on it and keep going.
Well, frequent transfers have really changed the face of college athletics, and Penn State volleyball has not been immune to that. How can you use that in your favor here as, again, you look to get to that point where Penn State volleyball is playing in the Final Four again?
You know, I mean, one thing Coach always said, and it's the same for me, is that I want players that want to be here, that want to be a part of this program, this university. We have a great group of girls coming back that are really eager to get back in the gym and to get moving, and want to help with the recruiting process. So it's, yeah, the recruiting piece is definitely tough, but, you know, that's what I love about it. And we're going to have to lean on some transfers and to get some different kids in here to help us along the way.
How would you describe your style as a head coach?
You know, I want the players to get a piece of everything here with how hard they're going to work in the gym, with the community, with everyone around, just to really embrace that, and to really be in the moment and to enjoy it. I think this conference is by far the toughest conference around, and the players know that. And I think that the expectations for them have been set, and maybe it's just making a few changes here and there and putting themselves in a different position.
I always ask this of people who get a huge job, right? Where you're shooting for the job, you're interviewing for it, you're wondering if you're going to get it, and then you get it. And then all of a sudden, maybe you have a moment where you're in the office alone for the first time, or it's just you after kind of all the whirlwind, and you think to yourself, okay, now what? What do I do? What's the first step? So what's your now what? Well, what do you do now? What are the immediate steps you take after taking over this program?
Let me tell you, I look at my phone and I have like 300 text messages that I need to get back to and some voicemails. I definitely had that moment this morning. Yesterday was a whirlwind, and I'm just excited to press forward and to get a staff here that is that's going to do what it takes to get back to where we need to be. So the staff, recruiting, every day has got to be something to accomplish for this team and this program to make it better.
How will you measure success in year one? If we were to sit down a year from now and say, was this a good year? What would have to happen for it to be a good year?
Oh man, we got to win, right? No, I just, I want to put together the best team that we can. And, we have to fill in some pieces here. And I want to be able to get the best players and to have the best group working for the same goal. So wins, it matters. You got to win some matches. And I think we'll put in the time. And like I said, it's got to be the right fit. And I guess it would be by wins.
Katie Schumacher-Cawley, that is a good way to measure success. The new head volleyball coach at Penn State. Coach, congratulations. Really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us.
Hey, thank you so much. And I just want to say hi to the South Side. So thanks for all your support.
We are close. We are close. You're as close as you can be talking to us here in Chicago. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
3 first-year coaches in the Big Ten, all 3 with some positive results to build on early. Indiana's been great on the defensive end under Mike Woodson. Look at that field goal percentage defense. That's phenomenal. Ben Johnson, Minnesota, perhaps the biggest surprise, got off to a 7-0 start with a completely overhauled roster. Micah Shrewsbury and Penn State, couple nice Big Ten wins. So as Andy rejoins me, let's talk through what we've seen from these first-year coaches. Start with Indiana. It really feels like it's come together here over the last week. Couple of significant home wins against Ohio State, Minnesota. What are you seeing from the Hoosiers?
Well, first I'll just go an umbrella.
A big picture?
Yeah.
So you don't want to answer my question.
No,
You're going to answer your own question.
I will. I'm going to turn the tables on. No, but I think we have to we can't judge off of one result, because each one of these 3 different points of this season already, you could have picked apart, is he the right guy?
Right.
Because with Minnesota, we'll get to that in a second, it'd be more recently, was that a fluke? Let's take the big
I also don't
here.
think you judge off one season.
Correct.
Right? I mean, to me, when you take over a program, and they took them over in kind of varying degrees of readiness to compete, but, I mean, especially in this day and age, look at Minnesota. Like, you certainly wouldn't have judged Ben Johnson negatively in any way based on what he could have won 0 games this year, and that would not have been a reflection of whether or not he's a good coach.
So that's my umbrella.
Yeah.
For Mike Woodson. He clearly had made all the right moves, I think, to this point. Go back to when he got the job, putting the staff together. I think hiring Dane Fife was a great move. He really is the first coach, and I was there at the beginning when Bob Knight was fired. So I've seen it over the last, whatever it is now, 20-something years. He's the first one to connect everything. And, there was been times when, whether it was Green, Sampson, Miller, Dockich, you tell them, whatever, it was like a little bit trying to get it in, but you want to keep that group apart. It was never all about everyone. And, when Mike Woodson came back a year ago with Bob Knight, I think that was a precursor to what we're seeing.
Totally.
That to bridge the 2 worlds together. So that's number 1. I think he's done a great job of that. He's obviously well-liked. He's personable. The biggest recruit, you had a great interview with Trace Jackson-Davis. The fact that, he's able to sell the NBA credentials and get buy-in from Trace Jackson-Davis. The fact that he can publicly criticize TJD and he's okay with it.
That was fascinating,
I thought that was a great piece, part of that interview. Because in today's world, whether it's NBA, college, high school, you name it, people don't like to be criticized. And then they take offense to it. And, I know better, my parents know better, my AU guy knows better. And so I thought that was a great sign of maturity, and also a little bit of an old school approach from Woodson, from the Knight era. Not maybe in the same delivery, but to say, you know what, you're not cutting it right now. Here's what you got to do. You want to be this player? You know what? I've seen what it takes to get to the NBA. You're not there yet. And you could say, oh, my workout guy says X, Y. No. I know. I've been a head coach in the NBA. So I think that has worked very well. And to your point, statistically, they're defending. The guard play has gotten better. That was a problem. More so on the guards than Woodson, I thought.
I think Trey Galloway's going to help them a lot just these last couple games, the infusion of energy that he has brought. I'm with you. I was really impressed with Trace Jackson-Davis yesterday because it takes a special kind of kid to be willing to take that kind of criticism when you're an All-American. And he obviously is receptive to it and understands the degree to which he can be helped. And I agree with you on the Knight thing, too. Time heals all wounds, but having Bob physically there, I think, was really important. Let's get to Minnesota. This has been a great story. I know these last couple of weeks maybe haven't been quite as good, but where are you on the Gophers?
Well, first of all, the schedule is brutal. And, they got another tough one coming up this week, obviously. So going back to Michigan State after playing Michigan State at home, and you got a hot Michigan State team. So big picture on Minnesota. They have way overperformed.
Yep.
I think he's done a phenomenal job. He has great buy-in from the state. He's the first coach predates obviously me and you in terms of someone who can view this as a destination job. He's from there. He, I think, will really work the ties. And I talked to Ben about this, I think, a week ago about it's one of the best or it's one of the more undervalued recruiting hotbeds, the state of Minnesota.
For sure.
And look, Gonzaga obviously has gone in there and gotten Suggs and Holmgren. Duke has gone in with the Joneses. So you're not going to get everyone.
And Hurt.
Yes, and Matthew Hurt. Can you pluck off one every other year? Sure. Go back to Troy Bell at BC, Big East Player of the Year. So there's great talent there consistently. And so if you can get some of that, which I think he really will, I think you will be able to keep one of those guys every once in a while at home, the way Indiana has had success. And they just have to weather this storm, get back to beating the teams that they should at home, steal another one, and I could totally see them getting the NCAA tournament at the end of the season.
And that'd be remarkable. That's National Coach of the Year stuff if they do. He had to cobble together that roster. I worry about their lack of a post presence, offensive and defensive. I just think it's really hard to win in this league in particular because there's so many good big men to win in this league without a significant post presence. And frankly, as we get to Penn State, I would say it's reasonably similar there. The difference is John Harra is a rebounding beast.
Yeah.
And so it helps you somewhat there, and they're gonna collectively rebound. But what's your take on what Micah Shrewsbury has done? Again, similar in some ways, but he did not nearly have to overhaul his roster to the degree that Ben Johnson did.
Here's what I love about Micah Shrewsbury is I'm getting the feeling that they are creating an identity. And everyone talks about identity, culture. These are the trigger words, but you really get a sense that he is creating that there.
And what do you think it is?
I think it's going to be, a combination of Butler, Purdue, Celtics, basically, Painter, Stevens, defense, play your tail off, gritty, hard. Is that recruiting Philly? Is it recruiting Ohio, Indiana? I don't know. Bottom line is this is who we are.
Right.
This is how we're going to win.
It's actually not that dissimilar from what Patrick Chambers was doing, right?
True.
They were gritty, play hard also.
But, and I don't want to disparage, but I do think that they were always trying to we got to get into Philly recruiting. There was a lot of talking of where you're going to get in rather than who we are. It just, I got a sense, you did the game of the Plestra. We got to get into Philly. We got to be a Philly team. Okay, whatever.
Well,
that
there's
is.
a lot of good players there.
I know that.
And they built a program with really good players for them.
It just
Lamar
feels
Stevens,
like
Seth Lundy,
but it feels like here's who we are. Now you come to us.
Right.
Not here's where we need to recruit.
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
I think Patrick made all the right decisions at that time. I think he went after the guys he needed to go after, and he advanced the program to the point now where maybe Shrewsbury can come in and do it a little bit differently. Hey, before we get off this segment, I mean, Danny Manning technically was not hired at the beginning of the year to take over a program, but he finds himself in this odd situation. Hasn't gone great so far for Maryland, although I would argue, I mean, man, they've been really close. They made an incredible run at Wisconsin over the weekend and came back. You're 21 down, you come back to take the lead. It certainly shows there's buy-in there.
Oh, no, there's great buy-in. And I was there for his first game when they knocked off Florida in overtime.
Second game. Lost to Northwestern in the second game was Florida.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. Second game. They beat Florida in overtime in Brooklyn. He was very emotional. And they had great buy-in then. I think it has continued. The Northwestern game, because literally the Turgeon thing happened a day or two before, you can understand why they weren't sort of all locked in. But look, they're going to upset people. They almost got Wisconsin, as you said. They're going to be difficult. It's a tough game for Northwestern tomorrow after losing to them. So they're not going to be in the NCAA tournament unless they win the Big Ten tournament, but they're going to be a problem.
Andy puts out his Power 36 every week on NCAA.com. It is a must-click. And Michigan State fourth this week, highest-ranked team in the Big Ten. Wisconsin up 17 spots after topping Purdue, Iowa, and Maryland. What a week they had. Boilers down 8. Illinois is 14th, 1 spot ahead of Ohio State. And how about Indiana into his rankings at number 23? Let's go through a few of these teams. You really believe in Michigan State. You have them significantly higher than the AP does. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, my power rankings are a snapshot in time. I don't believe that just because one team lost, you had to move this team up. It's what did you do in the last week?
I mean, just for instance, Kansas obliterated them at the beginning of the year, and you have Kansas behind them.
Yeah, because Kansas lost to Texas Tech without its top two players.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a snapshot in time. And Michigan State, to me, they didn't play Michigan over the weekend, but they were playing the best basketball in the Big Ten. Other teams lost, like Kansas, so I moved them up to a number 4. Are they the 4th best team in the country? Probably not. But in this moment in time, to me, they are.
Yeah, I don't think they're the 4th best team in the country, but it's interesting your distinction, and there are a lot of different ways to do power rankings, right? There's kind of in the moment. There's trying to figure out where teams fit in the whole puzzle.
That's the whole season.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. So let's get into Wisconsin. It is tough to argue with Wisconsin at this point. I mean, man, they have been incredibly impressive. And I was reading your power rankings, and you also have Johnny Davis now as your National Player of the Year, and I think it's tough to argue with that as well. He's been fabulous.
So this is a great example. I had him at 27 a week ago because, they lost to Ohio State.
Big.
Yeah. I think it was the week before. So look what they did in this 1 week. They win at Purdue. They win at home against Iowa. And then they win a road game at Maryland. So 2-0 on the road, true road, and they win a good home game. So why not? And everyone else lost ahead of them, move them up.
They are really good. I think we're talking about kind of what would happen if Minnesota made the tournament, Ben Johnson, National Coach of the Year. Greg Gard's going to start getting some National Coach of the Year.
I did not have him on my list a week or so ago when I did it. I would have him now.
Yeah, he should. He should.
I actually did it before the Purdue game.
Purdue is falling a little bit, and you watch them, and they're still trying to figure it out on the defensive end. I really think it's that simple. I mean, offensively, there aren't many teams that can do the variety of things offensively that they can do, but defense just isn't there, and it's kind of weird to see from Purdue.
So this is a good example. If you were to do the bracket, Purdue would be higher than, 11th on your S curve.
Yes.
Because of their overall resume. But they lose they lose a home game, and they have 2 Big Ten losses. And, based on what else has happened, I felt I should drop them down. Do I think they're the 11th best team? No, I think they're much higher when they play to their potential, which they didn't last week.
How about that game against Illinois on MLK Day? That's going to be that's going to be a huge game, be one of the first huge games in the Big Ten this year. I have to say, I think you have Illinois too low. I think Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten.
So I would agree with you that I probably should have moved them higher, but I once again was looking at who they beat in comparison and where they won. So even though this is Nebraska tonight, road game, we'll see if the Michigan game happens on Friday, which would be a home game. So, I agree with you. I think next week, assuming they win this week out, by the time we get that Purdue game on Monday, I think they'll be in the top 10.
What do you make of Ohio State?
So they had an up and down week, got blown out by Indiana, and then had the win over Northwestern. So I kind of feel like they're sort of where they are, which is, in the middle of the pack. They're not. Could they be elite? Yes, they have the potential to be a top 10 team. But I kind of feel like that's where they are. Sort of, they're a little like this right now. Because obviously there was times when, they gave, 85 points to Northwestern.
Northwestern had more field goals in that game than
Yeah.
Ohio State did by 3. Ohio State just got to the free throw line a ton, including Malachi Branham. And I'll tell you, if Malachi Branham can become this guy that we've seen here in the last week, I think it really changes the equation for them.
It takes pressure off of Liddell, who had 34 in that
How
game.
about they haven't Justice Suing?
Yes.
I mean, what happens when Justice Suing comes back? Assuming he comes back.
Right. And so I think Ohio State can ultimately be a top 10 team. Obviously, they were when they knocked off Duke, but they got to get their sea legs back, which they didn't necessarily have. And Liddell basically said that when they came off their pause.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that he heard some of the criticism. He had 2 bad games in a row, and they came out and scored 17 of the first 19 against Northwestern. You have Indiana moving up. You have Indiana in your rankings. Again, they are not ranked in the AP. We have already kind of sung the praises of Mike Woodson a little bit in terms of a big picture perspective of what he's done globally and his vision for getting the program back and kind of restoring the glory. What do you think about this team right now and why you have it among the top 25 in the country?
Well, obviously, the week prior, they did not look good against Penn State.
Right.
So I didn't even consider them. Then they have this great week where they are the better team on that particular night than Ohio State, which was a great win for them. And then getting a win over the weekend against a Minnesota team that still was, a quality and still is a quality Minnesota team. So I think the combination of those 2 games, based on, as I said, it's not in a vacuum. It's everything else. Who had lost around, these positions where I had basically from 20 to 36. And to me, those 2 wins last week were better than what I saw in other teams that I would have put in that neighborhood.
Who would be next? Who are some other teams that you might consider getting into this Power 36?
Rutgers. I think if Rutgers continues to win, big picture with obviously the Purdue game was a while ago, but they just beat Michigan. If they were to win at Penn State.
So you really are in the moment, right? I mean,
Yes.
because Rutgers has a couple bad losses. And again, you're explaining them away, Lafayette, UMass, and I get it, but yeah.
Yeah, because, you can't go all the way back to November in a ranking in a poll. I don't view that as such.
Yeah.
Will it affect selections and seeding? No question.
100%.
You have to climb out of that hole, for the selection committee. But for rankings, it to me is who's playing well now. Just to take one quick thing out of the Big Ten, Alabama gets blown out or, loses to Missouri, a bad Missouri team.
Yeah, we've seen how bad Missouri is if you watch them against Kansas or Illinois.
But Alabama beat Gonzaga in Seattle.
Right.
So do I view Alabama from that game? No, that game was in early December.
Yeah.
You got to view Alabama that they just lost to Missouri.
So Rutgers would be your next team. Is there anyone else?
Well, Minnesota obviously could get back in.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. Looking forward to tonight. What are you most anticipating seeing this evening?
I'd be very interested to see how Derek Walker handles Kofi Coburn.
Yeah.